Hello everyone, welcome to a short lesson video on the topic Analysis and Communication of Accounting Information, that is Ratio Analysis for Cambridge A-Level Accounting. In this video, we will study some of the ratios in the syllabus. Before we proceed, please note, abbreviations are used in this presentation only due to space constraints. Abbreviations are strictly not allowed in the Cambridge exams. Let us look at the uses of ratio analysis. Ratios express the numerator in terms of the denominator and vice versa. This helps to make the analysis more meaningful instead of simply stating amounts in isolation. For example, average inventory on its own might not be useful for business performance analysis, but compare it to the cost of sales and it sheds light on the rate at which sales are made. Ratio analysis also allows identification of trends over a number of years. Based on these trends, decisions can be made, for example, whether operating expenses need to be controlled, whether credit period for trade receivables should be increased. Ratio analysis also allows comparison to be made with other similar businesses to know where a business stands. Ratio analysis has some limitations too. Some results may be misleading if they are compared over a long period. For example, the value of assets shown on the statement of financial position from a number of years ago is unlikely to be the same as the market value today. Since ratio analysis does not consider any external factors, inflation will mean that it will be inappropriate to compare costs of one period with those of another. It is difficult to compare two businesses because different organizations have different structures, different methods of financing their operations, different expense and revenue patterns. Ratios only show the results of business activity. They do not indicate causes of good or bad results. No matter how similar two businesses might appear to be, all businesses are different, so it is difficult to compare two businesses. The first ratio that we will understand is the earnings per share or EPS. In this formula, the numerator is earnings and the denominator is number of issued shares. Earnings are profit for the year after taxation and preference dividend. That is, earnings that belong totally to the ordinary shareholders. Let's look at an example. The profit after tax and preference dividend is given to us for 2 years and so is the number of ordinary shares. So the EPS in the year 2020 will be $309,000 upon 1.5 million ordinary shares. That gives us an EPS of 20.6 cents in 2020. And in 2019, it will be $287,000 upon 1.5 million ordinary shares. That means EPS in 2019 was 19.13 cents. And therefore, we see that in the year 2020, EPS has improved by 20.6 minus 19.13, that is 1.47 cents per share. Next, we take a look at the price earnings ratio or the PE ratio. The formula is market price per share upon earnings per share. It is a very important ratio for investors. How many years' earnings are investors prepared to pay to purchase one of the company's shares? This is indicated by the PE ratio. An increase in demand for the company's shares will lead to an increase in the market price of the share, which is indicated by an increase in the PE ratio, because the market price per share is the numerator of the PE ratio. And therefore, the higher the PE ratio, the greater the confidence the investors have in the future of the company. Let us look at an example. We are given the market price per share, that is the MPS, and the earnings per share, that is the EPS, for 2 years, that is 2019 and 2020. The EPS is in cents and the market price per share is in dollars. So we'll convert the market price per share into cents. So $1 is equal to 100 cents, and therefore $1.7 will be 1.7 into 100, that is 170 cents. So the PE ratio for 2020 will be 170 upon 20.6, that is equal to 8.25. This means that in 2020, investors are ready to pay 8.25 years of earnings to buy one share of the company. Similarly, in 2019, the market price per share is in dollars, so we will convert it to cents so that we can divide it by the EPS, which is in cents. So MPS is $1.5, which means that it is 150 cents. So the PE ratio is 150 upon 19.1. That makes it 7.85. That means investors are ready to pay 7.85 years of earnings to purchase one share of the company in 2019. Note that the PE ratio will not have a unit after the figures. So we will leave the answer at 8.25 and 7.85 respectively. In 2020, the PE ratio has improved because it has gone up. That means investors have more confidence in the company now. They are ready to pay more for one share of the company now. Next, we look at the income gearing ratio. The formula is interest charge upon profit from operations into 100. How easily can the interest payable be covered by the profits of the company? This is what the formula shows. The lower the ratio, the easier it is for profits to cover the interest expense. Let us take a look at an example. In 2020, the income gearing ratio will be 40,000 upon 500,000 into 100. It will be 8%, because we are multiplying it by 100, so the answer will be in percentage form. And in the year 2019, it was 16,000 upon 460,000 into 100. That is, it was 3.48%. We see that the income gearing ratio has increased by more than half in the year 2020. That means the borrowings have gone up and the company has become riskier. Another way to assess the riskiness of a business, and this is a great way, is to find out the gearing ratio for the business. The formula is non-current liabilities plus issued preference share capital upon non-current liabilities plus issued preference share capital plus issued ordinary shares plus all the reserves multiplied by 100. That is, the numerator is the fixed cost capital, the denominator is the total capital, and this is multiplied by 100. Fixed cost capital means those sources of funds on which business has to pay regular interest or dividend. A company which has a gearing ratio of greater than 50% is called highly geared, whereas a company which has a gearing ratio of less than 50% is called a low geared company. Investment in a highly geared company is more of a risk than an investment in a low geared company, because if the company is unable to service its long-term liabilities, then it may be forced into liquidation by those long-term investors. A highly geared company will also find it difficult to borrow further funds. Let us look at an example. The numerator in the formula for the gearing ratio is fixed cost capital. In this case, that means it is the debentures and the preference shares, because these are the sources of finance on which the company will have to pay regular interest or dividend. So we will take 800,000 plus 100,000. I am skipping the 1,000 here. That is the numerator. And then we write down the denominator. We will have to consider all sources of funds in the denominator, whether they come from the owners of the company or from lenders of the company. That is 800 plus 100 plus 1,500 plus 849. And then we finally multiply this by 100. The gearing ratio in 2020 is 27.7%. In the same way, we will find out the gearing ratio for 2019. We can put the numerator in bracket so that we don't get confused. The gearing ratio in 2019 is 12.53%. We can see that in the year 2019, 12.53% of the total capital employed was provided by people other than ordinary shareholders. In 2020, the company became more highly geared. 27.7% of capital employed was provided by people other than ordinary shareholders. So the company became riskier in 2020. The next ratio is trade payables turnover or trade payables payment period ratio. This ratio measures the average time a business takes to pay its trade payables. The formula is trade payables upon credit purchases multiplied by 365, and we will get the answer in number of days. Let us solve an example. Let's look at the data for 2020. I am not going to consider the thousands because I want to make it simple. So in 365 days, the company has paid for $1460 of purchases. Therefore, in how many days will the company pay for $169 of purchases? So we can cross multiply 365 into 169 upon 1460, that is 43 days. Similarly, in 2019, in 365 days, the company paid for $1240 of purchases. So, in how many days will the company be able to pay for $154 of purchases? So, we will cross multiply. It will be 365 into 154 upon 1240, and the answer is 46 days. So we see that the trade payable payment period has reduced from 2019 to 2020 by 3 days. The company is paying its trade payables sooner, and this may be a cause for investigation. So that was a short discussion on some of the ratios in the A-level syllabus. In the next video, we will solve a past paper question on these ratios.